Okay, well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us this bright, beautiful Thursday morning. It's September 26th, and you are now part of the Public Relations Society of America, Los Angeles, at Breakfast with Food Journalists program. My name is Stephen Chavez, and I am the president of PRSA-LA, and I'm grateful for that honor. I'm also CEO of Chavez PR. We do a lot of food and beverage public relations on behalf of chefs and grocery stores and food companies and beverage companies throughout the years. And so I'm also founder, and I guess why I was asked to moderate this panel, because I couldn't find anyone else, but I'm also founder of the food blog called Latino Foodie. Check it out, latinofoodie.com. And so in honor of it being Hispanic Heritage Month, and on behalf of my other fellow Latinx food writers, I wore my Concha shirt. My Concha Pride shirt. And just want to just shout out to all the food writers that are out there, because I know it's a lot to feed the beast, to constantly be out there looking and hunting for new finds, new eateries, new chefs that are making a name, particularly in a town like Los Angeles, right? I do want to share a few upcoming events for PRSA-LA, but first, I'd be remiss not to mention and acknowledge our board members who volunteer their time to support the organization, and the board members who are part of our At Breakfast With committee, and that includes Eric Deutsch, Claudia Santa Cruz, Gita Amar, and Maricela Cueva. Let's give them some snaps and say thank you for all the hard work that you do for the chapter. We have happening tomorrow afternoon. It's called Quality Time with Quality Minds, and it's where the PR community comes together and we volunteer our time sitting down with nonprofit leaders, helping them come up with strategies on ways to share their impact in the community with new creative ways to tell their stories. And so there's still time, I think, to register for that program. And then we have the 60th annual, 60 annual Prism Awards, which is our industry's like highest accolades you can get, the Prism here in Los Angeles. And it's like our Oscars, in a sense, in the PR industry. And that's happening Thursday, October 24th. There's still opportunities to buy tickets. There's still opportunities to become a sponsor. So if you haven't looked into that, I encourage all of you to go to www.prsala.org, where you can find all of this great information. That's enough for the PRSA little commercial there. So it's all my honor right now to introduce the three distinguished panelists who have decided to wake up early and join us today. And first we have Amaya Fernandez, from a producer at Total Acceso at Telemundo, right? We have Sarah Mosqueda, the Orange County Times food writer. We have Babette Pepaj, founder of bakespace.com, and Neil Saavedra, host of the Fork Report at KFI AM 640. So I'd like to just have them, rather than me read their bios, share with us some highlights of what they do, where they work, and then I'd love to hear what they love about their job. So I'm gonna turn it over right now to Amaya.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, to be sharing this time with you this morning. Well, my name is Amaya Pinto Fernandez. I'm originally from Spain, but I've been here for the past 22 years. I'm the executive producer of the Telemundo's morning show, Acceso Total. It's a national show. It's a lifestyle show. Of course, we cover food, of course. I'm a food lover too. I was always saying that if I was not a producer, I would be a chef. I'm always in the kitchen if I'm not here. I love my job. I love to tell stories. I love to go to especially to our community. And I think the best part is to be able to help the small businesses, to have a voice, and to let everybody know that they're there. And that's what I love the most, to be with our community, involved with our community.
Thank you, Maya. I'm going to skip over from what I see on my screen, Neil.
Good morning. My name is Neil Saavedra. I'm the host of the Fork Report on KFI AM 640, Saturdays 2 to 5 p.m. and everywhere on the iHeart Radio app. And I'm not a chef. I'm not a critic. I am a food enthusiast. And the show is really an excuse to celebrate culture and food for 3 hours and have people bring me food to eat.
Is that what you love most about
In
it?
that order, yeah. I actually love that people are comfortable with coming up to me and saying hello. I love and meeting people. Like it's a selfishly, as somebody who does something so public, I am kind of a private person. And so it's neat to be out there to where people feel comfortable coming to me, because maybe I'd be too shy or something to go up to them.
Right.
and just connect with people. It's super humbling to think that anybody reads our stuff, sees our stuff, connects with our stuff. So that's my favorite is having somebody excited to see me taste something they made.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Neil. And moving now to Babette.
I will unmute myself. I have dogs, so just in case, sometimes I mute myself just to prevent the dogs from barking. I have a couple of Chihuahuas, so if you guys, Chihuahuas in the house. Whoop, whoop. So I'm Babette Pepaj. I'm the founder of Bakespace.com. I was a television producer for like 15 years. I directed and produced reality television, worked at The Real World, Road Rules, and a whole bunch of shows you've never heard of. And I took a cake decorating class, and I was like, what is this? Who are these people in the food space? And I thought there needs to be something that connected home cooks in real time together. And I thought a recipe swap, that would be so awesome to have online. And so I launched bakespace.com with very little tech experience, but I had a pure passion for just sort of doing the right thing, connecting home cooks, being part of the conversation, and listening to them and being like, what else should we build? And so we built a cookbook publishing platform also on it, so anyone can create a cookbook. And it's like the members' passion is what's always driven what we've done. So members wanted to create cookbooks and sell them, so we did that. And then we recently launched really the first AI kitchen assistant called BakeBot that can answer any questions. It can make any recipe. It can modify anything. And then also on all of our tried and true recipes, we have 100,000 recipes that have been submitted by members. These are recipes from their family. They've entrusted us with those recipes. And now if you see a great recipe from Pinterest, you come to the site, you look at it and you go, I don't have that ingredient. You can just say, I don't have that ingredient, and and BakeBot will help you with the ingredients you have on hand. So it's really super fun. My favorite part of the job is, I think seeing people respond. We had a woman who was looking for a frosting recipe, and in her chat, eventually it got to the point where she was like, I'm making a wedding cake for my friend. So we weren't just helping her make a recipe, we were helping her with like a memory that she was going to have forever and that she was gifting to like her best friend. And it's those moments when I realized, wow, these are real people. This is a real community. That's probably my favorite part of the whole job. And then of course, meeting people like Neil, when I go on his show, it's one of my favorite things to do too, and talking to the whole community. So yeah, I love the food community in general. So that's
Great. Thank you, Babette. I know you do a lot of good work in helping food writers and bloggers and influencers. So thank you so much, and brands. Sarah.
I'm Sarah Mosqueda. I'm really happy to be here. I work with Times OC, which is a community newspaper of the Los Angeles Times. I also work with Los Angeles Times food section. And for Times OC, I cover Orange County food, art, and culture. My background is journalism. I went to school with an emphasis in print journalism. So writing has always been my passion. But alongside of that, I also always worked in restaurants, serving, bartending, and me and my husband owned a restaurant for 5 years here in Orange County. He is a chef, and I have a very close relationship with the food community in OC, and also just a part of the food industry. So I think that offers me a unique perspective in my storytelling. And my favorite part of my job is I'm an Orange County girl born and raised, and I love getting to share my favorite places in OC on this platform. And I also love finding new places. I think like I said, I've lived here my whole life, but I feel like I'm always finding places I've never heard of or people I've never met before. And so I really enjoy being a part of this great community. So.
Perfect. Thank you, all of you, again, for being here with us to help us as PR folks learn how to best pitch you stories and learn about what's unique in terms of what maybe new technologies, software, multimedia, that you're working with. It's important for us to understand. We're lucky. We live in Los Angeles, right? It's a unique space with so much as the culinary hub with this offerings from celebrity chefs to new restaurants opening and closing every day of the year, feels like, from the mainstay American traditional American restaurants to all the different ethnic foods that are available for us to, again, the small hole in the walls, the eateries that we love to find, and the taqueria on the corner the street in Baldwin Park or something that you just never knew was only open at 10 p.m. at a certain time at night. But with all of these, I'd love to hear from you. What kind of stories are you seeing recently in the food world that has caught your attention or interest, and why? Why do these stories stand out for you?
Well, I just read a story last night in the New York Times from Dan Barry about liverwurst, and I thought it was a hilarious read, but it was also really informative. He was a little bit nostalgic about how you can't find liverwurst anymore, but it also kind of got into how food trends change, and he kind of was saying now in every deli case you see turkey, and in his day liverwurst was a more popular kind of humble deli meat, and so that was interesting to hear, like kind of a personal perspective, but also kind of get into food trends and how the way different generations eat and how we consume food. And it was a really enjoyable read. That was one that, and you would never think like someone pitching liverwurst you wouldn't think would be necessarily a good story, but it was super entertaining. So
yeah.
I don't know that we're going to see a lot of liverwurst after the closing of the Boar's Head factory.
Right. And that was that was what inspired the story. So he kind of, started off talking about that, but then went into his story. So yeah.
Yeah, I find those things fascinating as well to see. And we have to be careful as people in the forefront of disseminating information, what the difference between a fad is and a trend. And those types of stories to me are always fascinating. Also, the behind the scenes, maybe giving a peek when they talk about whether it's, the minimum wage, or it's back of the house folks saying, hey, we've never been tipped traditionally, or things like that. Those stories, I think, are neat to not only see and read, but also bring to the audience, because it's something they don't always think about. It's like kids that aren't raised on a farm. We go, the meat comes from the butcher or the grocer right here. We don't understand the fabrication and the processing of the animal. And so I think it makes people respect and understand back of the house or servers more, to know that they're not just pocketing wads of tips or something, or things like that out of greed. So those kinds of stories always are interesting to me, to be able to bring something that they wouldn't get normally.
Okay. Amaya, anything that?
Well, we're always looking for places that like discover new spots, new pop-ups, new restaurants, new home cooks everywhere. We're used to, I ask everyone and the team, or they already know that we're looking. So, hey, I went this weekend, I went to this restaurant, it's amazing. It's there. We also have like these back stories, like this family, they lost everything, they changed completely their profession, and they're just like, oh, we all love cooking, so let's do something, right? So we're trying to look for that type of stories, also with like with a background, and also to help them thrive in their businesses. So we're always looking for those paths. Lately, we've been doing. I mean, the last one we did, it was last week. We are lately, I don't know since when, we celebrate all the national food days. So if it's National Paella Day, like last week, we did have a chef here. He prepared a paella outside.
Right.
It was great. Talking about the tradition, and we cover so many countries. So it's Paella Day, it's Taco Day, I think coming next week. So we're gonna have a taquero here celebrating and talking about the taco history and about also their business. We give visibility to their small businesses. That's what mainly we do.
Great. I've got a pitch for you after this.
Please do so.
I'm percolating like so.
Please.
I got a pitch. Okay. Babette, anything you want to share?
You know, I have actually two things that are part of the same conversation. There's NPR recently did a story about how AI recipes can kill you. and I was like, no, that's like the wrong message that you want. I couldn't believe it. And it was just getting syndicated everywhere. I was like, no. But I went to I spoke at I went to San Francisco yesterday and I spoke at an AI food conference. And I just happened to stumble upon a gentleman who works at Mosaic. And he was talking about, or Mozilla, and he was talking about how he had a recipe site, and he's like, you know how I got popular? And I thought this was really interesting to think of media this way. Is he said he went on Craigslist and he tried to get a whole bunch of people who are from different countries to create recipes that are based on the countries. The holidays for each country. And then what he did was he went to the Apple store and he said, this is when the Apple store would help you promote your stuff. He would go and he'd say, we have recipes from this country. Can you promote us as the featured app in that country? Because we have recipes for that holiday. And I thought, what an interesting way to get people to have attention and to really make it sort of, specific. But I thought that was kind of interesting how he did that. And it was just, San Francisco, they have some top thinkers, but that was pretty clever.
Cool.
That was an interesting way to get the word out.
Very cool. Yeah, good way to approach it. So tell me, Neil, do you automatically know like a guest will be good on radio? Because radio is a unique, vehicle to tell a story, because I would think you would need something a little more animated, that can hold the attention if you don't have any visuals per se.
Yeah,
a guest will be good on live radio. And how can we best work with you on prepping a client if they're going to go on your show?
Radio is weird and it is live. And some people feel like, oh, I've got to be so gregarious. And, I get told all the time, they're a great guest and they're funny or they're this.
They got energy.
Yeah, you don't know until you're on the air.
Right.
And I've had, really guys come in with machismo and about, being a chef. And then they talk about their childhood and break down and cry on the air. And that's a real moment you don't want to do. You just want that to breathe and be the moment. And then I've had people who are, joking and stuff, and the mic goes live, or they go, so when is this going to air? And they're sitting there. So always prep your people that it's live, unless otherwise stated, because then they go like, what? And I say, yeah, no, this is happening now. And it is different because you're in the moment and you never know who's going to be good or not, but I'm there for them. I'm not going to let them fall, and I can read somebody. And if they look unsure, or, I've had people like shake their head, like, I don't know what to do. And it's like, I'm here. I'm your guide. I'll hold your hand through the whole thing. And I just want people to connect with you. But as far as PR goes, it's not a deal breaker. But when you write to a radio show, say, we want to talk to your listeners, not your viewers, not your readers. Know who you're speaking to. If you have to put out a press release, great. I get it. And it's going to have your boilerplate stuff on it. But maybe a little note at the top. Hey, Neil, we met at such and such. I wanted to make sure you see this, because that's going to flag not only me, but it's going to flag my producer too. And, I can't tell, I probably just yesterday got no less than 3 dozen press releases. Just yesterday. I haven't even looked today.
Yeah.
So give me a synopsis. Say why this is special, not just, it's Latin Heritage Month.
Right.
Because we know that. And it's more like, hey, this person is a local, talking. We all chatted yesterday, and Sarah was saying that because she focuses on Orange County specifically, that a tie to Orange County is important. You want to capture my heart? Tell me you're family owned and operated, and I will move mountains to do everything I can to shed a light on that. So listen, know about the people you're talking to know my language,
Right.
and things like that, and you become partners. And I've got PR people that will say, hey, I don't know if this is right for your show. I'm trying to help them. This is what it is. And I go, absolutely. Here's a cool angle. I just went and looked them up, and, be connective and personal, because this stuff is everywhere and it's coming in. It's raining constantly for all of us of pitches and stuff. Be personal, have a synopsis, because reading, a 8-paragraph press release, give me the who, what, where, when, why, and the why, why this is special up front, and build a relationship. And I will help you figure out the ones that are on the fence that may be difficult for you to pitch. And I'll find a way to make them work if we get the bulk of the stuff right.
Perfect.
I just want to add to that. I think the personal note goes a long way, but also like, don't fake your personal note. I recently got a pitch that was like, hi, Sarah, I was reading some of your stories and I have a great story for you. And it's like a pitch about sunglasses, where I'm like, this is not something I do. And so to me, I'm like, so were you really reading my stories? Maybe you're reading another Sarah Mosqueda stories, because this has nothing to do with what I do. So also, be genuine too, I think is important.
Good advice, right. Now, someone mentioned in the chat, Sarah, I'm going to go to you, about, you get invited to a lot of events, probably, and particularly a lot of events taking place in Orange County. How do you decide what stories you're going to go out and cover, or what events you're going to go to? What do you look for?
So I have a few different criteria that I have to adhere to. Like what was mentioned before, a strong Orange County tie is very key. It has to appeal to our readership, which is Orange County based. So there has to be something that makes it relevant to the Orange County community, first of all. Also, we are a weekly publication. We are in print on Sundays, which means that stories are filed by Wednesday night at the latest, sometimes Thursday morning. And so if you're pitching me on Friday about something that you want in the paper for Sunday, it's too late. So, so if it works with a deadline is another thing that's important. And that's something, you're not going to know every reporter's deadline, but like Neil said, if you're building a relationship with the reporters that you work, you know what their schedule is, and kind of how they work and when they file things. And then the other thing too is it newsworthy? We are a newspaper, so there has to be some element of newsworthiness to the story. And, unfortunately, like adding a chicken sandwich to your menu is like not newsworthy for me. I can't write a whole article about one new menu item, but if you have something maybe more in depth, or something, just like something that makes the story stand out, that is really, really important. Something that's unique, something that we haven't seen before. And the other thing too with events I would add too is we typically like to feature events that people can still go to. So we might do a preview write-up of like a food festival or something, and maybe interview one of the chefs that's going to be there and get people hyped about the event. We love doing that stuff. We don't so much love recaps unless it's a really big deal where people want to know what happened there. Where I'll give you an example. I recently covered Chef Roy Choi, who many people know from Koji Tacos and Best Friend in Las Vegas and all kinds of stuff, did an appearance at one of our Orange County libraries here, and he signed his cookbook. So that, even though it had already passed, he talked a lot about his own Orange County experience. And so that was relevant to our readers. They wanted to read about, hey, he was here at our library. He said, you know, talked about his own Orange County experience. That was relevant to them. So we would do a recap of something like that, but like a beer festival where it's only happening once a year and it already happened and it's kind of not relevant anymore to readers. It's so I mean, those are all kind of the things that that I'm looking for, which is a lot. But again, you know, if you are familiar with the reporters that you're working with and you know kind of what they cover, what they look for, you can absolutely know who to send what you know, pitches and what is more likely of getting published. So
those are all really good points and tips for us. Thank you. Maya, I want to know like what trends or needs in the Latino community are different maybe than in the general market that PR professionals should keep in mind. Also, does, you know, just basic things like because it's Telemundo, do our chefs or our spokespeople need to speak Spanish fluently? So trends that you're seeing that may be different, and then like the basic things we need to make sure we're prepared for.
Well, Latino communities, we cover so many countries, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Central America, Brazil, all the countries. So it's a big variety that we have. Traditionally, our culture unites families. That's how we grow up. We grow up in the kitchen, talking to our moms, to our aunts, to our cousins, and everybody's chopping, everybody's talking. So food unites people, right? So we ask, as I said before, and like Sarah was saying, not because you added something to the menu, we're gonna feature your story. It has to have something to it. Especially our community looks for those emotional stories that are behind. Like, as I said, like people are struggling and then they made it, they had the restaurant, or they've been just doing, we have a lot of stories of people who love cooking, and then they're just cooking for friends, family, and all of a sudden they start like a little catering business, and then they move to a restaurant. And for us, that is a great story. Also because it empowers people, because people like, oh my God, my dream is to have a restaurant. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I do cater for people, but I don't know how to. So that's just encouraging them and motivating them to do something like that. So those type of stories that move, like you said, like general market, we are more emotional. We're more, we have a lot more flavors from all the countries, because it's just a lot of countries that we cover. So it's basically that those stories that we're liking, the heritage, the tradition of different countries of, I don't know, there's a lot of grandmas cooking now that we see and that we love to invite to our show. And we love it because it's genuine and people are trying to follow those traditions. So that's basically what we're looking for.
Okay, good to know. So make sure it's culturally connected to.
Yes, it has to have.
And what about our spokespeople? Is it okay if you do subtitles, or can they do a little Spanglish?
That's what I'm going now. It is getting more difficult for us to get Spanish speaking people. So we get pitches sometimes and we're like, oh, we have this person, she's fluent in Spanish and stuff. And then when you hear them talking, we have a problem, because like Neil, for example, maybe he's in radio is a little, the stretches are longer. For us, it's just like they have 3 minutes.
Yeah, you got it.
So you have to
30 seconds a minute.
Everything in 3 minutes. If you're not fluent speaking Spanish, we have a problem. They have to be fluent. It's just a must. If it is live, sometimes we do have stories that are pre-recorded, and those stories people don't need to be fluent because we can do subtitles. With the subtitles also comes this part that our audience complains, like, why are they speaking English? If his name is Jose Contreras and then he's speaking English, and then we get all these complaints. Why are you putting subtitles? So it's kind of like it happens with artists too. You're interviewing artists, and why do you have to put subtitles to Jennifer Lopez when we have that problem?
Right.
Get complaints.
Tell our viewers, Maya, the difference between your show and maybe the local network, Telemundo KVA, do you guys work together?
We were local. We were a local show. So what we did is just mainly cover Los Angeles County.
Right.
That's what we did. But then we started growing, and then more markets joined. So now it's a national show.
It's a national show.
We have to be able to cater to everyone. It's a little, that's when it comes a little difficult, because you have the West Coast compared to, let's say, Miami, which is a completely different taste. So that's when it becomes very visual. And I think we all are visual. Whenever you see something, I love cooking, but whenever I see something that's like, oh my God, it's not necessarily that I'm going to cook it, but I love to see it. It is entertaining me. I don't know. Sometimes it's just all this food with a lot of spices that make me crazy that I'm not going to use probably, but I love to see it. I love to watch it. So in the sense of local, we're trying to be like more broad, like do a little bit of everything, cover all parts of the country.
Okay, good to know. And Babette, so you've parlayed many branded recipes and cookbooks into earned media coverage. How do you do that?
So just for everyone to know, so BakeSpace as a recipe community, but since we have the cookbook publishing platform on it, we can publish cookbooks. And what that means is that we usually make a brand a community member, so that when one of the members starts to befriend the brand, they start swapping recipes right away. And we started doing, that was maybe 2007, I think, was our first branded cookbook. We do a lot of TV shows, films, a lot of food products, like imagine blueberries or strawberries. And we create cookbooks that are based on the brand story. So it could be, recipes that are featured in a TV show. But it's almost like it's like a window into the story. It's not just here's what's on the table, it's here's what the show is about. And it's such a nice soft sell to people who are at home, because they might not be interested in hearing about a new movie, but they are interested in checking out a new cookie. They will have a little bit more of an open mind if they're like, that sounds delicious. And then all of a sudden they're learning about the characters, or they're learning about the brand or the family tradition that this came from. And what's really cool is that we can create that. I can create the cookbook. I can create images for the cookbook. In fact, Neil had a show. First of all, I've been on Neil's show so many times, and it's one of my favorite things to do. If Neil calls, I'm like, yes, I will be there. He holds your hand. He brings out the best in you. So if anyone is ever doubting to go on Neil's show, do it now, because he's absolutely
listeners love her too. So it's not very.
Yeah, you never have to be shy, because he's so warm. You're just so warm. You're awesome. But so basically, what was I saying? I was talking about the cookbooks, but
you were about to say, I think the lemonade cookbook.
Oh, the lemonade! You're right. You're right. Neil was doing a show, and it was all about lemonades. And I like to test my ability to like move fast. So as he was on his show, I thought, he's doing the history of lemonade. I can make a cookbook about the history of lemonade. And I emailed it to him during his show, and he was like, what is this? On the show, we started talking about it. There's something just really wonderful and warm about a cookbook. So what happens is that once I make the cookbook, then I go out and pitch it to media, and I say, here's what BakeSpace has done. We're working with the brand. It's a really unique way for home cooks to interact with food and to learn something new, or to learn a new cooking technique. And lots of times it gets earned media. So now, food sections, as we all know, earned media is very hard to get. For us, I mean, down the line, 50% of the emails bounce back. Cision has like outdated contact information. I mean, it's like a laundry list of it never works. It seems like it's just hitting yourself.
There's so much turnover in the news.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
People change beats, and you're like, it's
like the person you were talking to last week.
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
That's a good point, Babette. I'd love to hear from Sarah and from maybe Neil as well, and in terms of your newsrooms and any changes in terms of your landscape, the staffing, when it comes to covering the food world? Do you have less resources, more resources? Sarah, do you want to share like a little bit about the LA Times food section and where it's at? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry.
No
So
problem.
I'm sure most people are familiar with the fact that the Los Angeles Times had massive layoffs in January. We lost probably the biggest, it was the biggest layoff we had ever experienced at the Times. So we are working with a very small crew now. And so we are stretched a little bit thin. But I mean, that being said, I think the people that are still there are very much dedicated to trying to create good journalism and share good stories. And that also might mean we don't have as much time for content that maybe we would have done before because there were so many of us. So, I mean, I think that's one change for sure. I think the other change that I personally have, experienced is we have a lot less photographers on staff, so it's hard to get art. And the visuals are a really big part of the storytelling. And so for me, like I am used to taking my own photos. I've been covering Orange County specifically in the greater Los Angeles area as a journalist for more than 12 years. And so I'm familiar with having to take my own photos. But if you have great art, like that is super helpful. Like if you already have,
The paper takes it.
like if you have wonderful art and that we're able to use that doesn't have like text over it or looks like an ad or anything like that, we cannot use that. But if you have great art, like that's super helpful. And that might be the difference between, getting published or not, because you might already have kind of a visual package that's ready to go. And we just kind of have to do the interviews and do that part. And that kind of makes it easier. It's a little more helpful. So, so I mean, that would be one thing that I would invest in. And then also to like know your clients. I've had people that pitch me, different things. And then once I start talking to them and get into it, it's like, oh, this is something totally different, or that they're not really an expert in the thing that you said they were an expert in, or whatever. And then that just like wastes time for both of us. And I hate to like get down the road into a story and then realize like this isn't going to work. And then, and then we both kind of have to start over, so it's really important that you know your clients well, and what their abilities are, and make sure that you're again sending them to the right reporter.
Neil, am I anything to add in terms of your stations and crew and
what's going on at the Times and is not unique to them. We've all dealt with this. Our news team at KFI has, shrunk. We often joke that we are not we don't have a massive team, but we have a SWAT team of news people that can get in and get out. Don't assume that because we're in radio or with the Times or in television that we have a massive crew behind us. I have a part-time producer that works with me rather, but works for KFI and on multiple shows. So I look over a lot of things myself so that I can do my best to vet and I have a no asshole policy. Sorry, but that's the truth. I want to do good things for good people. If you're a dick, I don't have time for that, and I do not want to introduce you to my audience. So I do my best to try and look for people that I think are genuinely trying to do good things. I think Sarah nailed it on. Don't sell me, tell me. Tell me, I will find. I don't want to write Sarah's story. Sarah's going to write Sarah's story. I can only give pieces and say, here's a cool thing. And when you try and overwrite a press release or something, you're trying to write the story. Don't come on my show. And when Sarah said about don't send me an ad, this is not an ad. I'm not giving you ad space. They charge for that.
Yeah.
I want to connect you with my audience. I will tell them your website, If I miss it near the end, you can say, oh, we didn't get to, that's fine. But I will tell that I know you're here to
Promote.
engage and to get people in your restaurant or to try your product or your sauce or whatever. If you sell them, they will hear it and they will shut it down. Just tell them. Just tell them, and
Right.
they'll find it. No one has to say, gosh, money is great. It's like this thing that you can get other things with. It's so you can put it in your pocket. Sometimes you could put it on a plastic card. You don't have to sell money. So just tell people things. Let us find the language to use. And to Maya's note, inspiration is powerful. Inspiration can be, inspirational stories are lovely, even if that's not the forefront. I crave that. And also, I agree so much with the thought that even if you're not going to make it, even if you'll never make this dish, being engaged with it is important. I don't have photos or images that I can use except on social. I have to tell people what it is and hopefully get them excited. So understand that it's going to be a little different as to how I do that. But those things, I have the biggest compliment is people saying, I don't cook. I don't really care much about food, but I love listening to you talk with people and engage them. And lastly, as a PR person, there are multiple faces on this panel today, and each of us have a specialty, and each of it lives into the future differently. You have to search my podcast to find me. But you know what? When you're on YouTube and you're looking for something, I guarantee Amaya's going to pop up with an interview with that person, which helps in multiple ways to someone like me. I'll get the pronunciation of the chef's name. I'll get certain things that I wouldn't get other ways. When I'm looking for good, deep, hard searched references, Sarah's articles are going to come up. That's going to come up long before you find a podcast about me, most likely. So utilize, just like social media, X is something that I use for immediate response. Hey, this person's coming on right now. Whereas Instagram, I might use for a longer, you have to give it a little more breath to say, hey, I'm going to be out at this event or whatever it is. So Sarah's stuff is going to live longer. Amaya's stuff visually is going to live longer. And they may not find the article unless unless my producers that are struggling, put all the right tags in it. So all of us make up a whole. You're not going to get a win just with TV or the written word or radio. All these things put together, Babette actually meeting people and connecting them with one another. There's no one that's going to solve your problem unto itself.
I think we are all in sync in this one.
Okay.
First of all, we're short-staffed. We don't have, we just end up with one photographer for marketing for us. Sometimes they borrow him for news. He's amazing, by the way. He doesn't say no to anything. We make it work and stuff. But yeah, sometimes they believe that we have this whole production, that we have kitchens. We do not have that. So we have to work with what we have, right? So we're trying to do a great story with the little things that we have. So when we get an email from up here, and this is with Sarah, we get all these, and with Neil as well, we have so many emails every day, and you have to read, you keep going and going. I'm like, geez, I do not have time for this. Most of the times it's just give you like when, how, who, when, and why. That's pretty sweet and short. We get it, and that's it. Because if we want that story, we'll ask for more after. We're like, okay, can you send a bio? Can you send these stuff? But okay, just for the pitch, and also be straightforward. It has happened many times that we do a story. Let's say that they're gonna do a family recipe, birria. I was gonna do birria. Okay, then they show up here in the studio. We do all the setup, and then they start putting out brands. No brands. Exactly. This is not an ad. You have to tell me first, hey, Tapatio wants to participate in, okay, then we go through sales. It doesn't go through me. We just tell stories. The branding part, and it's happening a lot lately. So we're extra cautious, the entire team. I'm like, ask for this, no brands, no logos, no anything, because they say, oh, no, it's fine. And then when they're doing all the setup, we
They're
find
putting the brand.
brand here. And it's like, no, okay, what if we do a little mention? No. And then they try on the spot. They're taking the time of everyone in there. And look, it's not gonna work. And I know they might have had an agreement with a client and they bring it to you and you're like, I'm sorry, but no. If I put that on air, I mean, I can't. This goes through sales. So that's why I always ask just to be straightforward. Hey, we have these, but we don't have that much, but we can work with them, but not to get under the table a lot of stuff that we get. It's just like a lot of surprises. That's why when we have live segments, we have to, if it's pre-recorded, we can manage, but when it's live and they bring something out, it happened one time on air and it was just, I think it was dirty. It was bad. It was to pull that on live.
You ruin your relationship with the producer. You're not going to bring them on again.
Do not invite these people anymore. We don't want any type of surprises on air. And so we work with everyone, like Neil is saying, like we really work good with everyone, but just to be straightforward and
it's a struggle. I know from the PR side, because you've got a client saying, well, that was a nice segment, but there was no mention of our brand.
Exactly. And then
they're like, that was a waste of our money. We paid you guys as a PR team to thousands of dollars to pitch this and book it. And then there's no mention of the brand anymore.
And sometimes you agreed on the email, and then and the little small, like I said, they're like, oh, and then it's Toyota. It happened with a commercial several years ago. Right. And we're like, man, it was but I didn't sign anything. Right. The agreement that you have with your client is not. It's just like those things. I think they need to be a little more careful with that.
I'm going to move into, before we open up to Q&A with the audience, a quick question. There's some recent banter, some back and forth from a online news site that covers the LA food scene. And they were bashing food bloggers and online foodie influencers for stealing their ad dollars. And that's why they were suffering, because part of it was, well, people are going to these foodie influencers on TikTok and Instagram versus going to the LA Times food section or going to our publication. And they're blaming because they're not true journalists and they don't have a culinary background per se. So as working journalists, do you see value in food influencers and the work they're doing? And do you ever get your stories from them? Sarah, put you on the spot.
So I have a lot of opinions on this I probably don't have time for, but I will say this. To kind of sum up my feelings about this, I think that there is room for everyone. I do believe that. I think that what influencers do is very different from what I do. And I think that there is value in their work. It is hard work. I don't know, like I'm a print journalist, but I make reels on my Instagram and it's hard. It takes time and it's not easy. And so it is definitely work. And they have a very large audience sometimes that can be helpful to a restaurant. And like I mentioned before, I owned a restaurant. I know what getting that exposure can do for your small business. Like it can be helpful to those businesses, 100%. But I also think that what we do is very different. And I think, I studied journalism. I'm operating under a certain code of ethics. I have a certain skill set. I think that we are reporting facts, and we have a level of information that maybe you're not going to get from an influencer. So maybe, and kind of go back to what Neil said, like you can look at all of the people here on this panel and they can do the same story and it will be different. Like they can write about the same restaurant and it will be different. It will be a different story. They will take it a different way. They'll present it a different way. And I think that goes for influencers as well. So in terms of like, they're taking away from us, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think that we're offering something different.
Mhm.
And I think that they need to, like, that needs to be respected and acknowledged. And I also, and this is a great segue into one of my biggest pet peeves is when I spend all this time working with a publicist or a PR company, we put together this great story and I send them the link. And then they say, oh, I'm hitting a paywall. How do I see this? You subscribe. That's how you see it. If you want me to cover your client, like I'm helping you, you need to help us. Like you
Right.
should be a subscriber. And I've had people, I've written about, I wrote about an art show and the curator was like, oh, I can't see the story. Can you send me a PDF? No, like you should subscribe to the LA Times if you want to read the story that's about you.
Right.
Because that's how I get paid. Like that
Yeah.
is how I'm able to do the job where I can talk about whatever you are trying to promote. So I think
Forget about that. Right.
yeah, so that's something to me that if I work with you on this story and then you tell me that you don't subscribe to the LA Times, like I'm sorry, but I'm offended.
Yes.
And
Okay.
it's the same thing here. Every day they ask me for the segment. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, you have to watch it, you have to record it, because if for every person that comes to the show, we have to cut every segment, and not all of the segments. We usually upload everything to our web, but not everything goes to the web or YouTube
Right.
or Rock or so it's your responsibility to watch it as a PR. I believe that you have to watch it, cut it, and save it for your client.
Mhm.
Because that's an extra step for us to have to deliver the segment, like to go cut it all, ask your editor to go get it. It doesn't work for us either. That's exactly the same feeling here.
I'm
And
curious in
oh, and I was
Neil's
just going to
view.
say, I'm subscribing to all the newspapers and all the magazines and everything, because that's part of my job too, is to be
So that
able
was my question, Sarah, and to everyone on this. Where do you go and search for your food news? What do you read? What are you reading? What are you listening to?
so I'm looking at New York Times food. I'm looking at the Orange County Register because I cover Orange County. I'm looking at Voice of OC. I'm following influencers on social media. I'm following news sites like Telemundo. I'm listening to radio and podcasts like Neil. I'm listening to food podcasts. I'm listening to, KCRW. I'm listening to, like, I'm consuming content all the time
All the
because
time.
you're trying to always have your finger on the pulse of what's happening. I'm following chefs on social media and restaurants on social media so that I know like who's moving where, who's changing their menu, who's doing whatever, who's
Right.
closing, who's opening. I
Okay.
think yeah, I mean, I
Perfect.
think a lot of places everywhere.
Anyone have anything different to add?
I want to add one thing about the influencers because
Okay.
they do have their place, and I'll tell you why. We talk about the vendors, the street vendors, the complaining from restaurants about the street vendors and the food trucks. If you remember, this still goes on. Then we can't come back and say we're concerned because ad dollars are being taken by influencers. You can't, because that's what the restaurants were saying about the vendors and the food trucks, because they have to pay taxes differently and they have to do. The fact is, Sarah's got overhead with the Times. Amaya has overhead. Babette has overhead because she's not just doing it on here. She has to build a freaking AI, the whole AI interface there. KFI has overhead. iHeart has overhead. It's going to be different. So we have to balance those things out and say, if we're going to defend the street vendors, we have to be able to defend at least the good influencers as well.
Okay, good point. I want to read off of
Stephen.
the chat. There's regarding the restaurant scene in LA. Do you want a restaurant to be open a certain amount of time before you'll take guests to do a segment or a review?
I do. You've got to protect your client. If they're not ready for me to talk to hundreds of thousands of people and tell them to go to your place, don't do it. I've seen places that have been overwhelmed by that and that closed because they weren't ready for it.
Okay.
Yeah, agree. And I think also too, like with Times OC, I will cover restaurant openings. Like I will say, hey, you know, Irvine Spectrum is getting these 3 new restaurants, and that if that's newsworthy, like if they're, you know, the first Shake Shack opened at Irvine Spectrum, that's like news. We're getting our first Shake Shack in Orange County, right? But yeah, I saw that question earlier, and yeah, if like a restaurant, we don't want to, if we spend all this time and do a review and shoot photos and do all this, and then in 6 months it closes, like that's a disservice to our reader, because we're trying to provide information, you know, help them decide where to eat. And if that's not even an option anymore, unfortunately, it's not, it
You
doesn't
could
work.
mention it opening, like these are opening, you know, new
Right.
places opening, but
Quickly, we have 2 minutes left. Anyone else have a question they want to answer?
Stephen, I wanted to add to the influencer thing because
Okay.
it always makes me laugh because in 2000 and I don't know, every year I've been in business for like almost, it's like 18 years. And every year there's always like one group that's having trouble with the next group. Like it used to be cookbook authors said, don't trust food bloggers. And then now it's like food bloggers say, don't trust AI recipes. I mean, it's like, it's the same thing over and over and over again. And I think if you just look at it in terms of, it's like eyeballs. It's like, do I want my story in the New York Times food section? Yes, obviously. Do I want somebody on TikTok to send the message out about the product to a whole bunch of people and have people commenting, and I can show a client, you know, yes, that's what's happening. I think it's just like there's a place for everything. It just covers all your bases. So I think that those ecosystems should work together, because lots of those influencers can also cross promote. If the person who's doing the pitch is like, we're going to be in the New York Times, you know, we're going to be on TikTok, someone's going to, how do I get the 2 of them to work together to also possibly cross promote each other and say, go check it out. You want to learn more? The New York Times, open your paper today. I mean, I think that's maybe the
Ideal world, right?
Yeah, no, there's it's just, this story is the oldest story ever of like somebody saying it's almost, it's not clickbait, but it's like the same thing.
Right.
And I would add that I get almost all my food news from Google Alerts. I have all these search terms, and so I like it to come to me.
I like that idea.
And I just, for whatever topic's important to me, and I read it, and it could be an obscure, like it's, you know, it's this little tiny little publication in India that's like writing about this topic. Like I need to know it. So that's, I think, don't underestimate that that feature as well.
Before we hang up here, someone was asking about getting your contact information. Is everyone on the panel okay with us sending out your contact information afterwards in an email to our attendees?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Last question to wrap it up. What advice would you give us PR pros looking to build a stronger relationship with you? What can we do to cultivate that relationship? Send you a bottle of Vouv or?
Be honest, and us is be honest, because lately we're just like it's just wasting time and getting annoyed sometimes for not being honest. And I think that's what I teach my kids all the time. Be honest. Just, you know, this is what we have. If we can work, it's good. But we're not going to be able to be working together at 100%, but we're going to make the best out of it. But just be honest on all your pitch. That is all that we want, and be organized as well. Sometimes we ask for information and they send us a picture in one email, a video in another email, and then you have like 15 emails, like they put everything in one. That's all. But being honest for us is the main thing. I get it from the entire team.
And Neil, what about you? How do I
be familiar with our work? And then you're going to approach us with something that fits well, instead of trying to get a bigger hammer, and feel free to reach out and say, hey, listen, you know, here's 5 topics of clients of mine. Which one interests you the most, or do these not interest you at all? Get to know what my audience, my family wants.
Do you like emails or do you want a call?
Emails are the best, and you can never hound me too much. Babette knows this. You can never hound me too much. I have so many different email addresses, so many different things. bring it to the top of my email inbox, do whatever you need to do. Keep telling me, you know, as Sarah has said, and I think we all kind of echoed this, give us enough time and say, can you get this in this Saturday? If we don't have a relationship and you could hit me on Friday and say, can you get this on Saturday? If you have a relationship with me, I'll go, let me see if I can move something. And, you know, don't be afraid to hit me up during the show or whatever Babette has. And if it's something of interest,
I'm always surprised. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I may call you right then. I have chefs call me live on the air. And I go, put on.
What do you how do you prefer? How do we build a relationship with you and cultivate it? And how do you prefer to get your pitches?
Me?
Yes, Sarah.
Oh, so yes, I love a follow-up. You will never, like, I will never be upset if you follow up. I get it, like everyone said, I get an avalanche of emails every day, and sometimes I'll see something, but if it's Wednesday and I'm on deadline and I'm like, you know, furiously typing, I might say, oh, that's good. I want that for next week. And I'll forget about it because 200 more emails will come and bury it. And then, so I love a follow-up. So that's your job. I'm never going to get mad at you for asking again. What I will be offended by is, like Neil and everyone has said here, like, don't be phony, be genuine, be honest, and like, be familiar with our work. Again, like, don't send me, I've been reading your stories and here's this pitch that has nothing to do with you, you know. And once you begin a relationship with reporters, like I have reporters that I've been working with for 10 years, or I'm sorry, I have PR people that I've been working with for 10 years that have followed me from, you know, my time at the Register to Coast Magazine to now here, that I still work with and that I consider to be friends, and that I know that they're always going to bring me great stuff, and I enjoy working with them, and it doesn't matter where I end up writing, I'll continue to work with them if I can, because I know that they're good people. So yeah, get to know us, and you know, we're not that scary, we're nice.
I am.
Well, that's a great way to end, and I want to thank each and every one of you for participating this morning in our panel. Thank you all from the PR industry for coming out this morning and supporting PRSA. Remember, go to www.PRSA-LA.org to find out about upcoming events. But also, if you're not a member, consider joining and being a member. So thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
You too.
Adios.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We enjoyed it. Bye.